Hi friends, Itheria here, and it has been almost a month since Endwalker was released, which means I've been playing Sage for about a month. Now, before I get into this video, I do want to say that the footage I'm using in it is from level 90 dungeons from Endwalker. They are not part of the MSQ, but they are just extra dungeons, so if you have any worry about spoilers, then you are warned. Now, as you can see in the title, in this video I'm going to be sharing my updated thoughts and opinions on Sage after playing it for about a month. So I'm gonna briefly go over my expectations versus the reality of the job. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I think it's good at, and then what I think it's not so good at, and then how I feel about it in general. Is it a job that I'm going to keep playing? We'll find out. So, I talked a little bit about this in my first impressions video on Sage, but there were some things I thought about it that are not really quite true. So the first thing was that I thought Sage would be able to excel as both a barrier healer and a pure healer because Eucrasia has to be applied to prognosis and diagnosis. That made me think that on their own they would be like pretty good heals. And they are useful, they have their time and their place, but they're not really like gigantic fat heals or anything. They're really not that strong. I don't know the potencies off the top of my head, so I do not know if they're equivalent to like a Cure 1 or a Medica, but to me they don't feel very strong at all. So if I'm like looking for a fat heal, they're probably not what I'm going to be reaching for. So all that is to say is that Sage is quite truly a barrier healer. It has no place pure healing, okay? And the next thing I was really excited about was Cardia. I thought this skill was gonna mean I would never have to touch the tank ever again. I could like put it on and forget it. I don't know why I thought it was gonna be like super OP or something, but I just did. And it's great for management, like if the tank is just taking normal attacks from the boss, then it's doing its job. Even if the tank, you know, maybe they take a tank buster, but they use their own mitigation, so they only take like, I don't know, an eighth or something of their HP, you can easily heal them back up with that. So it is a nice skill. It is definitely useful. It's just like nothing amazing, and it's never going to be something that can just be used on its own. So that's that. So what is Sage actually good at? Obviously shields, shields and mitigation. It has barriers that will eat a certain amount of damage. Essentially how they work is they are equivalent to a specific amount of HP that would be cured if you were using a healing skill. So if the damage is 10k and the barrier would cure 5k, then the barrier will eat 5k of the damage. Does that make sense? I hope I'm explaining it right, and I hope I'm not totally wrong, but that's how I understood the tooltips. So that's a barrier, and then of course Sage has mitigation, so it'll reduce incoming damage by 10% or whatever the skill says. Most of them are like 10%. And Sage has a number of both barrier skills and mitigation skills in its kit, and so that makes it actually really good for dungeons. It is so easy to heal a dungeon on Sage because the tank can pull wall to wall. Now, I learned this from FFXIV Momo, and I would recommend you check his video out. But basically, you can put together like a Krasis with a Physis and a Caracol, and you like don't even have to heal the tank. You can just sit there and deal damage, and your Cardia will heal up the little bit that your tank does kind of eat, because basically the Krasis is increasing the potency of the regen that is from the other two skills I mentioned. So it's really good at dungeons. It's also really good at supporting fellow fat healers. So I haven't really played Astrologian that much, nor have I really ran with them that much, but I have played Sage and been with a white healer, and I've been a white healer and played with the Sage, and I can tell you they complement each other really well. I'll talk a little bit more in my next section about what Sage struggles with, but basically what Sage struggles with, the pure healers make up for. And then what the pure healers can't really offer, which is mitigation and barriers, the Sage offers. So they just work really, really well together. I also find Sage to be versatile in terms of its shields and barriers, and the reason I say this is because, well, we have Scholar as the other barrier healer that we can sort of compare it to, and Sage is so cool because everything is instant cast. So you have so much mobility with that. And also it makes it a little bit more user-friendly because you don't necessarily have to know the fight that well. You see the boss casting something and you throw up a Eucrasian Prognosis. I always get them mixed up. But you throw up that AoE shield, it's instant cast, it's super easy, and let's say that you were busy with your Dosis. You were like, you know what, I have plenty of time to get that shield up, and, well, you don't quite get it. Then you have Pepsis, so you can break the shield. Now, of course, Pepsis does have a cooldown, so it's not something you can, like, spam, but it is a really nice skill. It's useful for both, you know, topping people off if you missed your shield, or if you are struggling to heal people, you really need like a fatter heal, you can use Pepsis. You can combo with Zoe. So first you use Zoe, then Eucrasian Prognosis, and then break the shield. Obviously you can do that for a single target too, but if you're trying to heal the whole party, then Pepsis can be great for that. Another reason I think that Sage is really versatile is because of skills like Panheima, where if you don't use the entirety of the shield, so you get 5 stacks, and if you don't use all 5 stacks, then it'll just heal depending on how many stacks are left. So let's say that there's an AoE or like a stack marker or something, and you put Panheima on, and then it goes off, and you guys take some damage, but not a lot. People are above half HP. You don't even have to heal everybody, okay? You can just leave them as they are, because only 1 stack was probably taken, and they will get healed once the buff runs out. A skill like Panheima is also really good for AoEs that are continuous bursts, so maybe you get hit 5 times, which is as many stacks as it has. There are some new instances in Endwalker that do have mechanics like that, if you know, you know. So it's definitely a cool skill to have, whether you use it for just a single shield and then a heal afterwards, or you use it to cover you for several hits of damage. It's pretty fantastic. I mean, Scholar can apply shields and regens, but as far as I know, there is no skill that Scholar has that can take several hits of damage and continue to either shield or heal them. I feel like Panheima might be kind of like the Sage equivalent to White Mage's Lilybell, something like that. So those are the things I think Sage is pretty good at and excels at, things that I think are really cool about the job. So let's talk about now what I think it's bad at, or perhaps what I don't necessarily like about the job. So I don't think that Sage is very good at fat healing, okay? Its heals are weak, and that makes sense. We see that with Scholar too. Their job is to put up barriers to mitigate the damage, so they don't have to heal it. That's kind of the point, right? But you know, things can get kind of crazy when you're in a raid, a trial, whatever. People might not know the mechanics well or make mistakes. So if there are times when people are making a lot of mistakes and it's several people who are getting hit by mechanics, it can be hard to heal them back up to full. Especially with the new Pandemonium raids that came out. I've played both Sage and White Mage in them, and gone with both Pugs and my FC members. And let me tell you, we have had some sticky situations where literally my whole kit is like on cooldown, and I'm just like, I don't even know. I don't know what to do. Because, you know, one of the cool things about Sage is you do have skills like Pneuma, which you can add Zoe to make stronger, and that's your fat heal. Toracol, single target fat heal. Duracol is not like a super fat heal, but it's pretty good. But the problem is that those take Adder's Gall, and when you're in one of these sticky situations where I'm talking about, where it's like everyone is getting hit by every mechanic, and it's amazing that there's even anyone still alive, it can be kind of tough to heal people up. Another thing I find is when you get up from being dead, if you do not have any stacks of Adder's Gall, then it's kind of hard to heal yourself once again. You don't have like a Cure 2 or anything equivalent to that, So again, you either need to Drukhul or Torkoal. And now something really nice about Sage is that even when you're dead, your Adder's Gall will keep stacking up. So you, if you wanted to, could sit dead enough to get a stack of Adder's Gall and then use it. But just generally, it's a weak healer. It doesn't have the fat heals. So sometimes sticky situations can be a little tough. They're not impossible at all. I mean, I've always believed in the power of a skilled player, but definitely can be a bit of a struggle. Now this next one, I'm not sure if it's technically a bad thing or not, but Sage definitely requires you to kind of combo a lot of skills together to get the best effect. So for instance, this is something I learned from Momo. I will definitely link FFXIV Momo's video in the description, because if you are learning Sage, it's going to be super helpful. Even if you've been playing Sage for a month like me, I learned stuff from his video, so I would definitely tell you to give it a watch. But anyhow, comboing skills. So if you are healing a dungeon and the tank is pulling like wall to wall, then a lot of times it's really helpful to use Krasis, Physis, and Caracol all at the same time, and even a Eucrasian Diagnosis. That way you can get Toxicon, but it's also a nice little shield, so that while you're getting all those skills up and, you know, before you're able to kind of get some of the HP back with those skills and with DPS, it's just nice to put up. And Toxicon. Did I say Toxicon? Toxicon. But that's an example of a combo that you might do. You might also combo things like Panheima and Caracol when you're in a raid or something and you're about to take an AoE, because it's like a barrier from the Panheima and some mitigation and regen. You might also combo Haima and Torkoal on the tank when they're, again, pulling lots of mobs. So it's definitely a job that requires you to put at least 2 or 3 skills together to have a really good effect. I mean, even something like Duma, it's a decent heal on its own. It's a pretty good heal. But if your party is really struggling and they're below half HP, like literally I have used this skill comboed with Zoe to take people from like a fourth of their HP to like almost full. So as you can see, the skills definitely work better when they are paired together, sometimes more than paired. So like I said, I'm not sure that's necessarily a bad thing. I think in some ways maybe it makes the class a little more tricky or challenging, which can be both good and bad. I mean, obviously if it's a little more challenging in the sense that you have to pay more attention to your cooldowns, then, you know, some people might struggle with it a little bit. But I do think you can get the hang of it relatively quickly. As with anything, practice makes perfect. But, you know, I guess the bright side of that is that it gives you a little bit more to do. So if you find that White Mage is a little bit too cookie cutter or something, it's just a little boring for you, then you might like Sage, because there is a little bit more to think about in terms of the way that you're using your skills. At the same time, it can be a bit more user-friendly than something like Astrologian or Scholar, because you can put your Eucrasian shields on really quickly. And like I said, literally all of the shields are instant cast. So you do not have to worry that much about casting them at the perfect timing as you would with a job like Scholar. So yeah, like I said, there's probably a little bit of good and a little bit of bad with the fact that you have to combo a lot of skills. It's not quite as straightforward as something like White Mage, where you're just like, a size, a flatus. Like, you know, it's pretty easy and straightforward there, where this is a little bit more thought behind there, just because, you know, a skill like Panheima does have a lot of cooldown. But like I said, once you get the hang of it, not too bad. So finally, the big question, is this gonna be my main? Am I gonna keep playing Sage? I think the answer is like kind of yes. So I'm still playing White Mage. I would say I've been playing Sage more than White Mage, but I have a special place in my heart for White Mage. I really love White Mage. It is the only healer of its kind in the game. I don't care if people call it brain dead or smooth brain or too easy or boring. I don't care how other people feel about it. For me, it is the kind of classic MMO reactionary healer. And honestly, up until Final Fantasy XIV, all the MMOs I played, that was like all they had was like the reactionary healers. And so for me, I still find it really fun. It's kind of nostalgic, And yeah, I just love it. I feel powerful on White Mage too. Not necessarily because of Glare Mage, but just because I feel like the heals are really strong. And it's just like, in the time it takes other jobs to heal like the party, I'm like, I've already done it. So yeah, I don't know, I still love White Mage. So I kind of feel like I'm gonna be like double maining, like I'm gonna be playing both of them because I actually really like Sage. I think it's really fun to play whenever I feel like White Mage is like too rote for me or too routine, too boring, and I just feel like doing something else. That's when I'm gonna be pulling out the Sage. Or just when I feel like playing Sage, because it is fun. I also feel powerful on Sage, especially for dungeon pulls, because the tank can like pull so much, and I put on like, you know, the combos I was mentioning before with the Crisis and the Physis, and then like I'll follow it up if I need to with like Haima, and I don't know, like they don't take that much damage, and I'm just out here like sunglasses, like I'm so cool, I'm a great healer, like I'm amazing, like it makes me feel really good. So it's really fun to play. It's fun to play it with other classes too, especially pure healers. I even had a really good run of one of the new trials, I believe it was the first new trial, where I was like co-healing with a scholar, and I don't know, it went really well. I don't know why, but it was like really cool. So yeah, I'm loving it. I'm gonna keep playing it. And that's that. I would love to hear your thoughts about Sage, so please tell me in the comments. Have you played Sage at all? Are you interested in playing it? Do you like it if you did play it? I'd love to know. As always, thanks so much for watching. Bye!